All right, how's everybody doing? Is this a crowd I can trust? So I kind of have an embarrassing story that a lot of times I'm afraid to tell, tell other people. About 3 years ago, I started hearing these imaginary sounds in my brain that didn't exist, and it really worried me. Luckily, for everybody around me, it wasn't saying kill, 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 but instead it was saying pick up, pick up, pick up. But as I reached into my pocket, there was no cell phone. I was hearing what they call phantom rings, the imaginary ringing sensation that causes you to reach for your pocket, but there's no cell phone. And if you have experienced that, you're not alone, you're not crazy. Pew Research has shown that up to 67% of Americans will have this type of sensation, the phantom rings. During my experience, this epiphany that happened to me, I was doing jury duty. And as I left for the day, I forgot my phone. And I didn't have a book with me, so I had nothing to look at, no stimulation, no games to play, no Angry Birds, none of this, right? So I had no choice but to let my brain wander and wander. And think about that for a minute. How often do you have a chance in life to really let your brain free, like it's a balloon on a string as opposed to a tightly held water bottle? Not often in life, right? Well, as I'm there in jury duty, kind of looking around, not much to do, I start kind of observing as opposed to just reacting and doing, this reactionary mind. I just looked around. I didn't have anything to do. And what I noticed is most people were engulfed, right, in their tech devices, in their private little world, their private silo of thinking. Also, no surprise here, most people in the room were also overweight. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention estimates that up to 70% of Americans would be labeled overweight. About 36% would be classified as obese. So what I started thinking about connecting, because that's really what innovation is, connecting diverse thoughts, I started thinking, is there an analogy, is there a similarity between our physical obesity and these withdrawal symptoms that I was having? Maybe this idea that I was overplugged, but now I didn't have anything to do but let my brain wander. In other words, are we mentally obese? Are we so overwhelmed, overplugged, overloaded with information that our brain is becoming cloudy, that our ability to have a diverse range of thoughts that's necessary, that is a requisite nature of innovation, is that becoming more difficult? And if we are becoming mentally obese, what can we do about that? So what I started thinking about is what has the diet and exercise industry done? And let's consider that for a moment, right? Food has gone from a limited value to being unlimited for most people. And what has happened during that time period? Our obesity rates as a country have dramatically gone up, right? We wouldn't need a diet and exercise industry if we didn't have a problem with our food consumption, right? If food was so limited, we probably wouldn't have the need to get on the elliptical, to burn off the extra calories that we consumed. Well, always a fan of Da Vinci, and one of his maxims was, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So, similar to how we have a food plate that allows us to conceptualize our food consumption, could we have a mental food plate? You know, we like to say we're in the information age. How exciting. We're in the information age. Okay, that's good. However, most of us in the 21st century, we're knowledge workers. Is there a disconnect between the two? How do we go from taking all of that information and then synthesizing that into knowledge and then later on wisdom? One of the problems, our information has, again, become unlimited. I like to think about that game, Hungry, Hungry Hippos. Anybody remember playing that game as a kid? Loved it, right? So imagine we had a game right here of Hungry, Hungry Hippos. It's right here, and I'm playing. And every marble is a piece of information. Well, from an evolutionary standpoint, information is power. Information is the difference between life or death, between getting eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. I don't want that to happen. Our evolution has not adapted, right? So here I am gobbling up this information. Here you are gobbling up this information. But imagine if the marbles never stop, right? What's going to occur in that scenario? Instead of taking it to knowledge, to wisdom, we're so busy gathering information. The way I like to think about it is imagine your information is something that you gather to build, right? Here you are, you're building some type of house of wisdom, right? So you're gathering a limited amount of information. So the one benefit of the internet, the information age, is that whether you're in Kenosha, Wisconsin or Cambridge, Mass., you have equal access to information. That's great. But the downside is we're having a tough time actually filtering that information, finding the signal from the noise, the needle from the haystack. So what you're doing here, you might actually build, again, take a limited amount of information. I'm not an architect, so this is not to scale. Actually build some type of house, okay? So that's the distinction, that instead of actually just gathering information, we're occasionally removing ourselves from it to do something with it, to actually have some type of thought process, to have some type of reflection. But the problem is, nowadays, instead of having this house of wisdom, don't worry, I'll pick that up later, we have more and more information. So we might have these aspirations to build the house of Aaron Spelling, right? But instead we have this constant construction zone, okay? Because it's so much information that is just overwhelming us. So again, one of the ways we can do it is breaking it down into this mental food plate. There's a lot of discussion right now with things like digital detox, digital diets, camps that are being set up, distraction blocking software. But nobody, until this point, has really connected all the dots to say, can we have a holistic approach to this? Okay, so that's what we're doing here with the mental food plate. Let's start with this idea of mental assessment. Let's connote it with physical assessment. So how do you know if you're gaining weight? Pretty simple, right? Jump on a scale, you look at it, oh my God, geez, I need to lose some pounds. You also might feel your jeans, say, I don't know, what's going on with the dryer? These jeans feel a little tight, okay? So it's relatively easy. So how can we do that mentally? Well, let's imagine we had jeans for our head. I know it's embarrassing, but you only live once, #YOLO. So imagine you could put a pair of jeans on your head and say, look in the mirror and say, honey, does my brain look fat in these jeans? Right, but you can't do that. But what you're having is you're having an industry pop up that's serving as a counterweight to our major amount of information consumption, the same thing that has happened. Every year, 100 million Americans go on a diet. The diet industry is estimated at $20 billion. Exercise industry, $26 billion. Again, we didn't have a lot of personal trainers 30 years ago. Why have these jobs that were unfathomable, why have they popped up? They've popped up because we cannot stop consuming. Likewise, we're not going to stop consuming information, but what you're going to have is that counterbalance type of activity. So what I want you to do right now is to actually think about your thinking. So how good are your thoughts right now? Give me maybe a little clap. I'll do a clap-o-meter. How good are our thoughts? Clap if you had good thoughts? Okay. We got a pretty good clap-o-meter. So that's good because we're at a TEDx, so we should have a good thought process. But the point is going to be you're consuming so much during this conference, but when are you actually going to sit back and digest that? Okay, moving on with this idea of mindful consumption, kind of combining the idea of mindfulness. Similar to food, we have to think about our quantity and our quality of consumption. The way I like to think about it is all food is not created equal. All information is not created equal. It's not bad for me to consume a candy bar, but if I consume a candy bar every day, it's not a good thing. So visually, we might have aspirations to sit down and read Kafka, but we have the cold, hard reality of consuming Kardashian. Okay? So the problem is, here you are trying to do work, but you know what? That cute cat video, that's always going to win out over doing something real. So when we have that candy bar that's staring at us, don't rely on willpower. How well has that worked out for our food diets? It doesn't work. You have to have something more. So again, if you have the apple there, I choose the candy bar, but as we know, go straight to your derriere. So we don't want that. You want to consume the apple. If you don't have the candy bar there, you take a bite of the apple, like I just did. So you also have the necessary idea of reflection. With your food diet, you don't eat all day. You eat, and then you put down your fork and you let it digest. Likewise, we need to do the same thing with our information consumption. It's not easy. Imagine your smartphone is a cookie. Okay? Now imagine for a minute that your cookie is vibrating. Well, what are you going to do? Wait, I have a vibrating cookie in my pocket. Well, I just want to eat it because it's there. You need to occasionally, this is why I need a drink of water. You need to occasionally step away, sit down, reflect upon that information. Lay down in a hammock every once in a while. We're knowledge workers. Time doesn't matter. Output matters. Productivity, efficiency matters. One of the things I've noticed a lot in reading on this topic is people frame it as an either-or proposition. It's not. Either you are a Luddite or you're a tech fundamentalist. Either you're living on Walden Pond or you got a Bluetooth in your ear. It's not that way. It's almost like we're becoming defensive if we're trying to advocate some type of balanced model. It's like a modern Seinfeldian version of, not that there's anything wrong with that, right? There's absolutely nothing wrong with having a balanced approach. The last part is get plenty of exercise, like you would have with a physical diet. You see websites popping up that, again, are serving as counterbalance. You might be familiar with Lumosity. Started in 2007. Today, with their brain training games, they have 40 million members. There's a lot of discussion about how these brain training works, but at the same time, you're going to see more and more companies, again, serve as that counterbalance. In summary, Silicon Valley is our food industry, our mental food industry, if you will. Their job, like a cookie company, isn't to say, people are eating too many cookies. They're getting fat. That's not their job. Their job is to sell more cookies. And you know what? They're selling a lot of cookies. I'm eating a lot of cookies. You're eating a lot of cookies. But at the same time, you're going to need some type of balance with that. We have adopted Silicon Valley, but we have not adapted. It's time to adapt. Thank you.